This is Mike Holla from Michael E. Holla and Associates, bringing you an update for July 2023. I hope you enjoy us summarizing the markets so far this year and our thoughts on where we are going for the rest of 2023. Let's begin by reviewing how the stock market performed during the first half of 2023. The S&P 500 managed to post a gain, helped by evidence of slowing inflation and the prospect of an end to the Fed's rate hike cycle. The communication services, consumer discretionary, and technology sectors were among the top performers. The first half of the year was dominated by three overriding themes: inflation, rate hikes, and recession fears. As inflation continued to moderate and the Fed signaled that rate hikes may be nearing an end, fears of a potential recession became the dominant investor concern. The markets also grappled with regional banking stresses in March and the uncertainty generated by federal debt ceiling negotiations. Now let's talk about how the S&P 500 performance compared to expectations. The S&P 500 closed on May 31st, 2023 at 4,180, which is far better than most experts had predicted. The outlook was reflective of expectations that the economy could potentially fall into recession, while interest rates would likely continue to rise. Predicting where the S&P 500 will be by the end of the year is always challenging, given the uncertainties of inflation, global economic growth, and rising interest rates. To create some context about where the economy may go in the second half of the year, let's start by examining where we stood January 2022. We picked this month as a reference point since it represents a moment in which the pandemic was now mostly in the rearview mirror. As the indicators suggest, the outlook for the coming 3 to 6 months was exceptionally optimistic. The Federal Reserve's monetary policy remained accommodative, and interest rates had not yet begun their climb from their historical lows. On virtually every important economic indicator, from inflation and monetary policy to credit demand and availability, to energy costs, it was flashing positive. Only 3 indicators were neutral or cautionary: the political environment, equity market valuation, and geopolitical risk. There were no negative indicators. However, these conditions would soon reverse. Now let's jump to January 2023. In a short span of just 12 months, the economic outlook has done an about-face. We went from a set of speedometers that were nearly all positive to an outlook that contains no positive economic or financial indicators. After almost a full year of sharp and successive interest rate hikes by the Fed, there are now 7 indicators flashing red, most notably monetary policy, interest rates, housing, and leading economic indicators. The rest of the indicators are neutral. This is a good illustration, I think, of the impact across the economy and in financial markets of going from near zero interest rates to about 5% in roughly a year's time. And things do not look any better 6 months later. In fact, you could say the outlook has deteriorated slightly. Today we sit with 7 red or negative indicators, the same number as January. Perhaps the most notable change is that credit demand availability has moved into the red. This is a direct consequence of the regional banking troubles we saw flare up in mid-March with the collapse of 2 mid-sized banks. This banking stress has led many institutions to a more conservative approach to lending money, reducing loans to shore up the strength of their balance sheets. This may have significant economic implications since consumer and business borrowing are a major driver of economic activity. Fewer loans, in other words, may mean slower economic growth. At the highest level, the Federal Reserve has three functions: to provide an effective payment system for the U.S., to regulate banking operations, and to set monetary policy. When determining monetary policy, the Fed is tasked with supporting maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate long-term interest rates. Inflation has been a key concern for the Federal Reserve. While year-over-year inflation numbers are trending lower, they remain above the Fed's target rate. Month-over-month inflation numbers can be more erratic, and the Fed's decisions on monetary policy will continue to influence the financial markets in the second half of the year. One aspect of inflation that is particularly focused on is sticky inflation, which includes service-based categories that have historically exhibited rigidity in price changes. Sticky inflation has been stubborn despite progress on overall inflation. Addressing sticky inflation requires a delicate balance. While the central bank aims to maintain price stability, it must also avoid measures that could hinder economic growth. Tightening monetary policy too aggressively to combat sticky inflation could potentially slow down economic activity and impede job creation. On the other hand, allowing inflation to persist unchecked can erode consumer purchasing power and destabilize the economy. The Fed has much to consider as it evaluates monetary policy. Economic growth may be an integral variable in how the markets perform in the coming quarters. As you can see in the charts, the consensus view as of May 2023 is that gross domestic product growth is expected to be between 0% and 1.4% in 2024. Meanwhile, these professionals are projecting that unemployment rate remains low at between 4% and 4.9% in 2024. And they expect inflation as measured by personal core consumption expenditures to be between 2.5% and 2.9%. When we look at historical data, it becomes evident that bear markets characterized by declining stock prices and negative sentiment tend to be relatively shorter in duration compared to bull markets, which are marked by rising stock prices and positive investor sentiment. While bear markets can be unsettling and may tempt investors to make impulsive decisions driven by fear or panic, it is important to understand that they are often temporary corrections within the broader trajectory of long-term market growth. Staying invested over the long term is an investment strategy that can yield significant rewards, especially in a growing and innovative economy. This approach recognizes that markets are cyclical and that the upward trajectory of economic progress tends to outweigh short-term setbacks. By maintaining a long-term perspective, investors can avoid reacting to short-term market fluctuations focus on potential for long-term capital appreciation. Thank you for watching, and we will keep you updated on market developments as we move forward. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact our office at 920-686-7526. Thank you.